Hey, my name is Billy Zanski. I'm here at Skinny Beats Sound Shop. We're in Asheville, North Carolina. And today I want to just run through a whole demonstration of the main sound healing instruments and teach a little bit about how they can combine, how you can set up your own sound healing session. So we're going to just list the instruments and kind of point to them at first, just to give you a full kind of catalog. So the frosted quartz crystal bowls. These are the white bowls. There's also alchemy bowls that have the different colors, which is actually different crystals and gems and minerals and things. So those are your bowls. They make one main sound. They don't have a whole lot of overtones. Sometimes they do, but generally speaking, it's just one note, and they have different tunings. So that's something we're going to talk a lot about, tunings. So those are your crystal bowls. And then gongs, I would say, is the number two, or it's some people just do a gong bath. Some people just work with crystal bowls. Some people use all kinds of different things, which I do. So with gongs, you have a really wide variety of gongs. You have little hand gongs that you could also just put on a stand and play. You have larger gongs that you definitely can't carry or hold up. You need stands. And then there's gongs made in China. There's gongs made in, almost every country. Germany, there's tons. Italy. So let's then talk about things that you hit with mallets, like metal tongue drums. So this is a metal tongue drum. This is a larger metal tongue drum. So when they get larger, they make a much deeper tone, which is something that, is beautiful for sound experience, nice, deep, warm sounds. If you are using things that don't have a deeper, warmer sound, it's always nice to have something kind of in the background while you're making anything that's in a higher frequency range. So, because those sounds can be stimulating. So when we're talking about trying to combine the sounds, which we're going to talk about a little later, but always when I start talking about the instruments, I want to explain like, hey, it wouldn't be such a great sound healing experience if you just played over and over. Those are kind of high-pitched sounds. That's nicer, lower sounds. So little gaps in what you're playing. So this is definitely a smaller metal tongue drum, which still makes beautiful sounds. So the rain stick, this is one of the most awesome rain sticks out there. So this, when we flip it, will go about 8 minutes. And then you can always flip it again if you just kind of want that sound in the background. And you can also use it like a shaker. Sometimes I will employ that like that. And we'll talk about those improvisation techniques, things that you might just do because you're kind of feeling like, oh, I want to add more of this, I'm feeling this, and that's definitely a lot to be explained about that. Continuing with the overview, this is a chacapa. I've heard a couple different pronunciations, names for it. It's from Peru, this one, and it's some type of leaves, stalk of some sort, and they bind it up together and make this nice sound with it. This is a quartz crystal pyramid, which makes a very cool sound. You can spin it around, get the sound to kind of oscillate, and you can wave it around and move it close to people or hang it somewhere and just have that. You can make different sound with the different places on the instrument. So that's a cool one. These are Tibetan singing bowls. So that's a really large bowl right there. And I struck it with a mallet. That's pretty much the go-to technique for that. Even with quartz bowls, so many things can be struck with a mallet. So with this being such a large bowl, it's actually called a grounding bowl. You can stand in the bowl and then strike it, and the sound kind of comes up into the body. This is a more, medium to large size bowl as well. And again, just striking it makes beautiful tone. You can bring it close to people, which really enlivens the experience, but you can place it on people's bodies. So this is another really deep approach with sound work where you can use different sized bowls with different frequencies, place them on the body and kind of use a finger to hold it. If your client were laying down, you could have it on them and strike it with your hand, and make sure the bowl stays there. Or if you're using a bowl in a certain area of the body, it can just stay without you holding it. But so many different energies and sounds from all the instruments, especially Tibetan bowls. You could start to compare metal instruments with other metal instruments and what alloy is it and how does the sound overtone and interact and kind of mix. So like I was saying with the frosted crystal bowls, there's not a whole lot of that. It's more like really strong, clear sound. And with certain gongs or certain ways that you play certain gongs, you might get a really clear sound versus a mix of sounds. So sort of like a fundamental sound. So we're definitely going to talk more about that as well. I just want to show you some of the other things. Tuning forks, very cool. You know, you can have this little activator or you can use your hand, but if it's stored in the activator, you can strike it on the activator and now it's doing its thing. And if you definitely don't want to hold it by the actual bars because then, you know, you're going to stop some of the vibrations. So you hold it right like that, strike it, and then this can be placed different places of the body, or you can move this close to people and you can work with sort of the auric field, or, you know, there's lots of different technical aspects when you're going into just more specifics, more targeted things. I'd say the tuning forks are more targeted, you know, like they're subtle, you're getting more one-on-one work. I personally, in my practice here in Asheville, I'm doing a lot of group sessions. So I will bring instruments over to people, but I'm not really zeroing in and really spending a lot of time with individual client. So I'm more feeling into creating a soundscape that kind of keeps all the participants kind of present with the journey and seeing if, you know, they're relating and feeling and having a process happening and going deeper kind of into their own experience. And sometimes when you want to do really specific things with one client per se, you know, it can possibly interrupt their process if you're shuffling around making sounds and if you're coming close to them and you're putting stuff on them. And it could, there's so many different ways to do sessions, and I'm just speaking to what can happen when you try to think I'm going to do these certain things and how does that come off? That's actually something I'm going to talk about more later, where when you're learning to do your own style of a sound session, the key thing is always being authentic and in tune with how you feel things are going and how in your past experience, because practicing is how you get better. You can do all the training and get certified and do things like that, and then you still are going to have to spend a lot of time doing sessions. And as you keep doing them, you might notice, wow, I tried that thing and it kind of fell flat, or it didn't feel like aligned, or something was off. And it could just be the day, or it could be that like maybe it's not the best move for you to stop from that flow that you're in and then try to add in this other component, almost like it's feeling separate. It doesn't kind of blend. That's something I've noticed a lot with trying to add different stuff. Even coolest things like the kora, the West African harp. This is a beautiful sounding instrument, and any stringed instrument like the monochord, you know, stringed instruments have beautiful tone, beautiful energy to them. And this is a monochord, so you can just strum the strings. Of course, it just carries a beautiful sustain, you know, and you can repeat it. And then, of course, you might play a bowl that's in tune with the monochord, like this is an F and C, so here's your F, low octave F, and then you can come back. You're hearing that, and we can mix the C, because it's F and C in the monochord here. Then if you want to go a higher octave F, there you go. And then I started from the bottom, moved up that last time. So with the sound work, we're always listening to different sounds and thinking about what's a way that we can make this sort of progression. And so if you're starting out, you're setting up this sort of theme of that being that motion, and you repeat that several times, and then you might be ready to finish that segment, finishing with that kind of lower to higher. Is a possible beautiful option for you. So many options. That can be another challenge where you got a lot of options, and simple is good, steady is good, concise and sort of deep. When you start changing around a lot and adding in a lot of different sounds, it can potentially become sort of frenetic and not as grounding. So again, just trying to get through all the cool stuff and list all the instruments, like the drone flute. Okay, the drone flute has pretty much, in my mind, been one of the go-to flutes, instead of just a single flute. And if you have a drone flute and you just want a single flute, you just play one of the holes. There's 2 holes or 3. This is triple drone flute, so it's like 3 flutes that can be played simultaneously. This is just a single flute. If I can play it. Can't play it. Yeah, so this is... And that's the process of learning a flute. You know, I just took this out of our retail area. I don't play this in sessions. I play this large one. And I kind of thought I should demo the smaller one. But, you know, you got to cover all the holes and you got to blow steady. If you don't, you'll get kind of overblow, it's called. So you're getting like a different sound. And then both flutes. So that is a smaller drone flute. That's an F sharp. So here now is a larger one, which the F sharp is when you leave these 3 off. But if I close them all, it's a B. Here's the F sharp bowl. But just play the F sharp. So the drone flute is not that difficult of an instrument to learn. Sometimes it's a little intimidating. One of the key things is covering all those holes. That might have been a mistake I made at first playing it. If there's just the slightest gap, even just a sliver, the air is going to pass through there and mess up the sound. Right? So anyway, drone flute. So many other things, miscellaneous shaker things. Any sounds that you personally like, the rain stick, the chacapa, the bells and things, like this is something that I think is really good to mark transitions. So these little triangle plates, they are also just beautiful sounds. And I lost, there it is. So this, you know, I didn't get a good hit on there, but and then you can hang it. I have them hanging in different places. I also have this here little keyboard stand. So the bar chime, you know, and they make long ones like the one up here, much longer. Sometimes I'll use the triangles. You know, hit a couple and then bring this sound down. And double, so you kind of follow it. Sounds great with the triangles. So many things can sound great together. You just have to experiment and see, and that's part of what we'll get into with the video here, giving you specifics, like play the F sharp with the B. You know, so this F sharp, nice deep tone, mix with the B, and you don't need necessarily a 18-inch F sharp and a 24-inch B to do that same thing. You can do it on a smaller scale, like say you use this F sharp here. You know, that's like a 9 or 10-inch bowl. You can mix that with the B. That's like a 16-inch, but you can get a 14-inch B and have that F sharp B sound. It's kind of a beautiful harmony. Let's wait one more second before we keep talking about the specifics of the things. Any other stuff I wanted to cover here? The frame drum, I personally use the frame drum in every session and I put it on a stand. So with that, this is just a little basket stand. And you can place it on the stand. Doesn't even need to be tied on. Just sits there because you're not going to be playing it like a drum kit. Deep, nice, warm sound. You can also strike more on the edges. Gotta be careful with that, but you know, little soft things. And a lot of times you can play a flute while you're playing the drum, you know? And again, I'm always wanting to show you all the cool moves, but this is the frame drum. You can pick it up, it's got a handle, and move it near the client. A lot of times I'll kind of waft it over them and it gives this great little fresh air, kind of wind feel. And then hitting it more on this edge gives a different sound. And this is actually the Remo Buffalo drum synthetic. So there's nothing that really is temperamental about that drum. The sound generally stays the same. This is a goatskin frame drum. There's so many cool frame drums out there. You know, you can get them out of different skin and different makers and different techniques. This one is tunable, which I love that. You can put a wrench in here and change the tension. Because when this skin starts to stretch or there's different weather conditions, you might realize my drum is flat or my drum's super tight and it could even break or it could just be temperamental. But it's a beautiful warm sound and it is not something that can be reproduced by synthetic materials. Just this, and this is a 30 inch, so it is quite large. I've got 22 inch, 16 inch, they make different sizes. They make a 38 inch, which, you know, awesome, deep sound. So that's the frame drums. And again, using it on the stand is a really, really awesome thing because the handpan is something I haven't yet spoken about. And, you know, the handpan is such a great sound to have. And I'm putting it on the basket stand that I usually put the frame drum on just because it's sitting here. But there are handpan stands, which definitely you would want. And you can play the handpan with a really soft mallet. I know that's kind of weird. It's a hand pan. You play it with your hands, you know, and that's, of course, play with your hands. But I am sometimes mixing gong sounds with handpan sounds with the frame drum on the stand with that bass. So doing things like that. And the sound of the mallets is different than the sound of the fingers. So again, just versatility and exploration and seeing what feels right for you. And this is just a sort of guide to show you possibilities. So harmonics between the notes, you know, that's another thing with all the instruments that we're always trying to feel into, like, you know, what kind of, and I'm getting some sounds because it's on the stand that it shouldn't be on, but anyway, you always need to pay attention to that. Am I getting some kind of, sometimes people hang a gong on something that's got a rattle, some little piece of rope or something is whatever. Sometimes when I come to a new space, I'll use the frame drum to check how much rattle is in the room. You know, you start making sounds and there could be a distracting, like you can hear this, it's shaking because it's on the stand that it really shouldn't be on. But anyway, the handpan, beautiful instrument. We have many different ones in stock. Makers are just really developing how to get deeper sounds, different scales, different types of metal. Stainless steel has many different types, as I'm learning, the ember steel and different types of stainless. So give us a call, email, and we'll talk handpans and learn stuff on that. I think in general, that's a pretty good overview. I wanted to go over what are the main sound healing tools, you know, and then as you keep developing, there are just any instrument. The didgeridoo, I didn't mention that. That's one that, like, when I teach people to do sound, sometimes it takes a bit, like a year, to really get really good on the didge. But just to show you, I mean, this is like a $95 didgeridoo, and it's in tune, it's a C sharp. So again, just talking about the tuning of things, using a tuner or like your phone with an app, tuner app, iStrobo Soft is the one that I use, that will tell you the sense. We'll talk about it some more, but this is like a true 440 hertz tuned C sharp. And to play the didge, you just gotta learn to work your mouth. Sometimes I think people think, you gotta have these really big, powerful lungs to play the didge, and it's really a lot about your lips and your mouth and how you control and maneuver that to make the sound. So at first when I started playing, I was using just some humming. Ooh, you know, if you hum or make sound with your voice into the didge, it will translate through. And then I was doing a little of the circular breathing, where you start to just kind of control how your mouth is moving to let the air in your mouth propel the lips. And then you can just sniff through the nose. And it takes a minute to learn that. But sometimes you could even just play the didge. Say you're not a circular breathe master and you just deep breath and just play the didge until you're out of breath. And maybe you've got like a bowl that's in tune with your didge. And then I faded out the didge. So another thing we'll definitely be talking about is bringing things in and bringing things out without it being too stimulating, too startling, because it takes the experience deeper when there's sort of like an impetus to follow where the sound is going. It's more subtle. Transitions become more kind of fading in and out. So that was kind of a technique. And I didn't circular breathe with the didge there. I just one breath, let it fade out, and I could bring it back again and add some different things. The key, if you're going to do something like the didge, or almost anything as you start to go deeper with doing the experience, the key is always knowing, like, what can I mix and how can I bring that kind of transition or progression. So throughout the session, you're not breaking up that sort of focus. And that's the thing that I think, above all the different cool sounds and things that we can use to bring in different energy and make it a more interesting experience, I think it's really top priority for you as the sound creator to really stay in this sort of focus and bringing in this deeper energy, awareness, presence that does translate. And of course, if you're not smooth and good at making the sounds, that would be a hang-up. But I think the biggest hang-up is if you're kind of thinking a lot and concerned and nervous or whatever, those things can really sort of lead whoever's giving you their attention to then feel that or react to that, even if they're unaware. Tingsha. This is, of course, one of the most common ones. And this is, again, it's in tune. So I've found, how do I add some different sounds? And so I'm always checking with the tuner. This here is a C sharp. This tingsha, C sharp. So like, you can make this cool interaction between the sounds when you know that they're in tune. If you have a sense or an ear, you can just play them and be like, yeah, that sounds good. And that's a great way to figure it out. The tuner is pretty helpful, especially if you want to get super precise with, any instrument that makes a really clear note. Gongs sometimes don't make the clearest note, but they do when you strike them in a certain way with a certain mallet. So let's get ready to transition into going specifics on using each set of instruments. That's our little overview.